our connections with you by doing our
Book report.
So it is now February. Unfortunately, we did not get our video out to you guys earlier as we expected. We have been doing a few personal things that took a lot of our time. So now that that's over and done with, we are catching up and we are making sure that we get backtracked on our videos and make sure that we get on track with our videos again for every Friday.
Yes. And our podcast as well.
Yes.
For those who are driving and listening to us along the way as well.
Yes. So the book that I read for the month of January is Felix Ever After by Kacen Callender. And the book that you read for January was?
Think Like a Monk by Shetty.
Yes. So these are the two books we're about to do a book report on. Before we get into this book report, it is a spoiler alert. So if you do plan on reading these books and you don't want to completely hear everything about them, just go ahead and skip towards the end and you will hear our final review and what we rate these books. Also, the books that we're going to be reading for the month of February.
What is something you learned in the book?
What is something I learned in this book? So he is in a journey of finding love, right? So he wants to fall in love, that everyone around him is falling in love except for him. And I think what I learned most is that love doesn't specifically come from a spouse or a partner, right? Love comes from friendships, your parents, your community. Love comes in different forms and different ways, and that's kind of the main thing that I learned, and I think that's what Felix learns in this book as well, that it's not just, you know, your partner that you get love from. It's from everybody. So that's what I learned out of my book. What did you learn?
That's pretty awesome because it's almost the same thing with my book, since Shetty is sharing his experiences on his former life as a monk. So he tells us many stories and fables regarding about his time at the ashram and then giving back as to how it can help other people with their lifestyle, with work, their career, and also their personal life as well. So this book definitely humbles you in trying to go back to your beginning of like why you do things the certain way you do, and if you do it on purpose. So the second question that we have written for this book report is, what was your favorite part of the book?
Go first.
My favorite part of Shetty's book is that he breaks it down to simplest terms, to where you don't have to be a monk to learn some certain things. Like, let's say for example, in the beginning, he tells us that certain words that we use in our daily basis shifts our mindset to do certain things. Like, instead of saying should or could have, you could have said like something like, I can do this, you know? Mm-hmm. So shifting some certain words here and there can definitely help shift your actual perspective in certain things as well. So I think it's a really strong message on what we use on how we use our words, actually.
Yeah, I like that, because it just switching that could or can is such a drastic meaning. Yeah. So I actually have, I guess, two parts that are my favorite, and it goes with Felix learning about love. And I wouldn't say favorite parts, but more like favorite people, I guess. So towards the end, when Felix is realizing different kinds of love, you know, him and his dad, they were having such a rough patch because of his transition, and his dad basically letting go of his baby girl because now he's a son, but kind of like getting to know his dad's side of the story and understanding his dad's point of view and opening Felix's heart on that. And not being so hard on his dad, kind of being like, well, why don't you call me Felix, or why don't you call me, you know, his name now, because his dad would call him in the book he calls it his dead name, right? So his dad would still call him that, and him and his dad had a heart-to-heart about that was the last piece that his dad had to let go of his baby girl, you know, and where him and his dad got to see each other's point of views. That's one of my favorite parts. And the other favorite part is when he realized that his best friend Ezra was actually in love with him, because throughout the book, Ezra never pushed that boundary. He never pushed trying to get, you know, into his boyfriend role or anything like that. He always supported him as his best friend and waited until it was the right time for Felix to be open to Ezra as his partner and not just his best friend. So those two favorite parts and people, I guess I would say about my book.
That's pretty good. I think that's also like a very strong message in today's society, especially how the transgender community is now having a voice, you know, and starting to be more noticed and starting to grow, you know, because before it was so shunned upon and now it's more accepting, which is good because we are a big world and why not share it with them as well, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And side note to that, it's not necessarily the question, but in this book as well, he talks about trying to find his true identity. So he understands that he is transgender, right? So he's not a girl, he's a boy, but sometimes he doesn't mind, you know, I guess the pronouns, right? And so it tells you a story in the book where he goes to, you know, the LGBTQ community center, and he goes to meetings and he meets with other people who are also having identity questions and trying to figure out, you know, what to label yourself, because there is so much. And I guess to him it was important to figure out what that label was for him. So it does share a good amount of him going to the community center and getting to know other people. And he actually was the youngest one. So he says in the story that he was the youngest person, like, in the meetings, and everybody else was older. And he was envious of the older, you know, LGBT community, because in his mind he was thinking like, wow, look at them, they're older and they know exactly, you know, who they are and what they want to be and who they want to call themselves. Meanwhile, the older generation was telling him that they're envious of him because he's so young and that he is able to freely express himself and be who he wants to be at such a young age, versus, you know, the older people who are just now getting into it. So it was very interesting to see that they were both envious of each other.
Yeah, and I think that's really pretty strong too, because it's still happening in today, you know, and of course everyone is still trying to figure out themselves and find their true self and their identity and where they fit in this world. So I think this book sent out a really strong message to everybody, not just for anyone who's in the LGBT community, but also anyone who,
honestly, like the part that I said where he was trying to figure out who he was, I think that part, I mean, in the young adults or even adults who are still trying to figure out where they want to be in life and who they want to be in. I mean, labels, you don't necessarily have to tag yourself to a label, right? But if in your mind helps you understand who you are, it helps to know. And this book is so helpful in that, because it just shows a journey of young, old, all trying to figure out who they are, who truly they are.
Third question. If you could ask the author one thing, what would it be?
I'm gonna have to think about that one. Do you have a question?
For me, I would say to Shetty, if you're listening to us or watching us, we're not sponsored at all, but I would ask him how it felt to write this book. I know he was in the ashram for 4 years, you know, trying to be a monk and learning to be a monk in all their ways and learning all their scriptures and all their stories and fables. How long did it take you to make this book and compress all your teachings in this? You know, like, it's such a strong message of putting it into words and spreading it out all over the world. And sharing that message that you really want to share, you know? And also, of course, he has his own podcast, so I would like to know, like, what triggered it.
So my question actually for Kacen, if you're watching or listening, is how do you relate to Felix? I feel like when you're an author, or at least I believe that when you're an author, there's a little bit of you that triggers a story, right? So there's a reason why you want to write this story about a character, or whatever the case is, and I just want to know, what part of Felix are you connected with? Also, does Felix ever get to Brown University?
So our next question would be, what was your least favorite part of the book?
So my least favorite part has got to be, and I say that it's my least favorite part is because it's the most hurtful part. Basically, somebody, and I'm not going to say who it is, somebody in his school hacked into his accounts, his old account, took pictures of his dead self, like blew them up, and posted his dead name and posted all his photos in a gallery at his school to expose him, right? And so that was so cruel of that person to do that to Felix, especially when, one, you're in high school, so you're already in like a tough part in life, but it's such a cruel thing to directly attack somebody's personality like that. But I understand the reason why it's in here is because, of course, that's the whole plot, right, of this book. But it also shows that in the real world, people are that cruel. And in high school, people are that cruel, especially nowadays, like with social media being such a large aspect in a lot of people's lives. I mean, I had social media when I was in high school, but it was, I mean, MySpace days. So it was definitely not Instagram, and we weren't hacking people's profiles like that. And so, yeah, I can imagine real life now, you know, some kids are going through that where people are exposing them. And so that is kind of like my least but realistic part of this book.
Mm-hmm. For my book, Think Like a Monk by Shetty, my least favorite part of the book was the exercises. The reason why I say that is because the exercises were so self-reflecting, and it really got down to my core in figuring out who I am, what do I want to do, and just the simple 5 W's, you know, and especially the question why. Why do you do the things you do, you know, and just digging deeper into each aspect really got to me. So it did change so much of my perspective on certain things. So I would say that was the hardest part of the book and my least favorite part, but it also was a good thing too, because it definitely allowed me to grow, you know, grow better than I thought I would go, and go further than I thought I would go too as well. The next question of our book report is, are there still lingering questions in the book that you are still thinking about?
Yeah, that was it. Does he get to Brown University? Like, I want to know.
For my own, Shetty, I'm now thinking if you're going to make a part 2 of your book, you know, like, what else can top this Think Like a Monk? So that will be my next question actually for him is, are you going to make another book? The next question of our book report is, how does the book's title work in relation to the book content?
Do you want to answer first?
Well, mine is pretty self-explanatory because Jay was just trying to make it as simple as possible, is Think Like a Monk. And basically it's just him sharing his experience and his time when he was a monk back in India at the ashram, and just sharing his teachings. So his title is very self-explanatory.
Okay, interesting. So with my book, and it also goes with, I'm going to pull it up closer, with the cover, so you can see him, and he has like a flower crown, right? So the title is Felix Ever After, and at first I didn't get it, right? Because I'm like, Felix Ever, like Happy Ever After, like that. But yes, he is happy at the end, so that makes sense. But I think, to me, the Felix Ever After is like the Felix after he's learned about himself. And in the book, he joins a competition, an art competition, and in one of his paintings, he has a flower crown, and that's kind of his, like, this is how he sees himself. You know, like, he calls himself, I think it was a demi-boy, is what the term was. And so it's interesting that the cover now makes sense after I got towards the end, and so does the title. So yeah, I definitely do think that the title goes with the book.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's crazy how the book art of the front page or the book cover does make a big appeal in an audience, in your audience, you know, like the quote, "Don't judge a book by its cover."
Yeah.
You know, so that definitely says a lot, especially when it's entitled in the book as well. The message is in the book. You know?
Yeah.
Next question of our book report would be, if you could give the book a new title, what would it be? Honestly, I cannot make this any harder than it is by Think Like a Monk with Jay Shetty, honestly. I cannot change this title because it's just like Steve Harvey's book, Think Like a Man, or even the movie Think Like a Man, or Think Like a Woman. This is just another version of that, but in a different perspective.
Yeah, it's kind of straight to the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think his title is already brilliant, and it's fixed on what it should be.
Yeah. I don't know, it's interesting. So in the book, his name is actually Felix Love. Love is his last name. So I don't know. Man, that's hard. I don't know. I guess it's hard because I understand the title now. Does that make sense? So like I'm connected to this title, so I don't want to change it. So yeah, I don't think I would change it. I don't know. I like this title. I'm not gonna change it. I don't have anything.
Okay, that's fine. You know, like of course, the author would always find a perfect title for their book. So if you can change it, then kudos to you, author.
Yeah. So going back to the question, now that I thought about this, Kacen, Felix Ever After. What I said, that he finds himself basically happily ever after. Is that what you intended by the title? If not, let me know, please.
The next book report question would be, how did it impact you? Like, do you think you'll remember the book in 9 months, a year, 2 years?
Yeah, so I myself had to find who I am, and it took me a while. It took a lot of hiding who I was, only letting certain people know who I was, or, like with family, I'm somebody different. With friends, I'm somebody different. And so this book, I will probably remember for a while, because granted, I'm not 17, but the fact that he had to find self-love, and he had to love himself first to see the love that his friends, his best friend, now boyfriend Ezra, his father, that kind of love that he already had, he had to find himself, he had to find his love for himself first. And he was trying to find love in all the wrong places in this book. He was trying to find love in his mom, who abandoned them, and he tried to find love from another boy who used to hate him. And so he was really trying to find love in all the wrong places. But really, once he fell in love with himself, the rest of it fell in place. And that was the same thing with me, and that's how I connected really well with that, is because I had to love myself first. And once I was okay and I loved myself, was when I saw the love of everybody else around me shift in a different way, in a way that empowered my life. And so that's why I really connect with this book, and I would definitely remember this, or like, you know, read it again in a few months, or, you know, a year or so from now.
That's really good, because of course in high school we are all trying to learn and become someone that we want to be forever, you know, and this book definitely does relate to a lot of people, you know, regardless of age, you know, because everyone's still trying to find themselves, you know. So, and of course you have a personal tie in figuring out who you truly want to be and creating your life the way you want it to be, you know. So of course, Kacen, you definitely sent out a strong message.
Yeah. You did. Yeah. You definitely did.
For me, with Jay's book, I would say that he made a huge impact on my life. I will definitely remember his book, and I will probably even share more with my clients and share it with others, you know, because it's also about self-care and self-empowerment, you know, trying to take care of yourself and learn a different side of you that you've never learned about before, you know, learning your fears, how to breathe, all the other things that you never thought you would actually focus on. It definitely would shift all of his teachings, and you'll learn all in one sitting of a book, you know. So I think his book definitely did make a huge impact on me.
Yeah, and I definitely see that, because one time at breakfast she asked me, if you were a fruit, what fruit would you be? And it's just, I can definitely see a shift in you know, her day-to-day thinking, and it's more of like, especially with our page and connecting with you guys, you know, the drive and the content we want to bring you, she has definitely changed in more of like what's more valuable to you guys. And so I definitely see that already working on you. So yeah.
And yes, I think also investing in yourself is always the best way to learn and grow, because of course at the end of the day it's always going to be you, you know. Like, yes, I understand there's family and friends and all that stuff, but at the end of the day you're going to go to sleep by yourself with you, or, you know, thinking of you, you know. And of course if you can't take care of yourself, then what makes you think you can take care of your family and your other loved ones, you know. So of course self-love and self-care is always very important, especially in today. There's just a lot of varieties or various components that are now affecting everybody, you know, especially during this pandemic, which is still ongoing. So you definitely will need to take care of yourself, and the simplest first step is reading Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk. It'll definitely help you strive for a better you and a better lifestyle, you know. You just never know. Give it a shot. Give both books a shot, actually.
Yeah.
They definitely have strong messages in the book, and the contents is definitely there. Last question of our book report is, what would you rate this book, our book, from 1 to 5?
I'm definitely giving Felix Ever After a 5-star.
And I myself, Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, rate it by 5.
Yeah, so that's really good. First book of the year in our first month, 2 5-star rating books.
Now, to introduce our next book of the month, February, for those who are wanting to join our book club, we are doing the intro of the book in the beginning of the month, and then towards the end of the month we're going to do a book report. So to introduce our second book of the month for February, we are reading...
So my book is The Beautiful by Ranee, Ahdieh. I'm hoping that that's how you say her last name. But that is the book right there, and you're reading?
And my book is The Leader in You by Dale Carnegie. It's a goodie and an oldie. So for those who are wanting to learn about self-improvement or self-powerment or self-help, this is one of the books that we're going to be reading for this month.
Yeah, so if you actually go into our TikToks, we are going to read the synopsis of the books on our TikToks. So if you want to know more about this book before you join us, please go ahead and hop over to TikTok and find us, or on Instagram, because we'll post it on there as well. Our mission is to raise connections with you guys, and we can't wait to hear from you. So please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully we see you at all of our other social media platforms. Until next time, hang loose.